fun stuff, politics. So recently, and I'm gonna let Zino take over this because he's just better at doing recaps than I am. Recently, the Republicans party has come back with a counter offer, I guess that's what we call it, to Joe Biden's counter COVID relief. And I'll let Zino explain more, but let's just say, obviously, it's less towards the individual people. But Zino will give us more information on that.
So the Biden plan, the Biden proposal is 1.9 trillion. In it, it has $1,400 in COVID relief checks, or I don't want to call it stimulus checks, COVID relief checks going out to every American, right? And they feel like this is the way to just get up and like boost the economy, but also get past the pandemic, right? Because a lot of the thing is that people feel like they have to get back out there and work and all that stuff because otherwise they're going to starve. But if they have some sort of relief that comes in some sort of like regular fashion, whether it's every 3 months or every month or whatever, then they're less likely to want to go out and like get infected and spread the infection a little more. Even Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, was like, "Hey, just go for it. Like, just put some. If you're going to propose something large that can get us past this." All right. So Joe Biden on Monday, February 1st, met with 10 Republican senators, which was his first official meeting in the Oval Office. Everything up until that point had been virtual because of COVID. And by all accounts, it was a cordial meeting, but the Republicans came and proposed a $600 billion stimulus or COVID relief package, in which they give Americans $1,000, and it's also a targeted stimulus where I think they're saying that if you make less than 40,000, you get this $1,000 check. Yeah. And the targeted thing also like kind of delays the putting out of the stimulus and all that stuff. It's kind of ridiculous. So Joe Manchin, Democrat from West Virginia, had been going around saying that.
Say it right, Democrat.
Yeah, Democrat from West Virginia had been going around saying that he's not in favor of the 1,400. No, he didn't say he was in favor of the 1,400. He said he was in favor of targeted checks, right? You give it to the right people. We can't just be giving everyone stimulus checks. One thing to note.
Because now we care about the deficit.
Right, exactly. That was the thing. He didn't want to blow up the deficit. One thing to note is that, and I saw this in one of the clips I was watching yesterday. The way that they're going to determine whether you make less than 40,000 and thus deserve a stimulus check is from your tax returns. People haven't filed for 2020. People filed for 2019. They're basing your stimulus check need on how you were doing in 2019 pre-COVID, not 2020 when you may have lost your job.
So pre-unemployment.
Right, exactly. Not 2020 when you may have lost your job and you're like, okay, I actually need funds, right? So that on its face is already, for lack of a better word, stupid. So anyway, so Joe Manchin is like.
Real quickly, I want to give an example as to why that's stupid. Mm-hmm. So somebody who I bowl with explained to me that he's working for Publix, right? He's working for Publix right now. Prior to that, because he got laid off, he was doing something in computers. Mm-hmm. So it's fair to say that he was making a lot more doing what he was doing via computers,
right?
Than he would at Publix as a just stocking stuff, right? Because he's doing this as I got to have a job, I need to work, right? Mm-hmm. So that shows you the difference. Like, he might not have needed when he was, let's just imagine he was making
6 figures.
50. Let's just be 50, 60, right?
Okay.
But now he's making, really on the dollar, he's probably going to make, if he sticks with Publix, and he's not even been there the whole year.
Yeah.
But it'd be like 28,000.
Right.
A year.
Yeah.
It's just like the whole idea that it's just ridiculous,
Yeah. So Joe Manchin has been talking about, it's got to be targeted. He's been talking about it has to have bipartisan support. I don't know who he's trying to placate to be honest, but he's been trying to do this whole thing like, I'm not going to sign anything that doesn't have bipartisan support. And we talked about this last week on our show where I was saying about the Democrats not having any leverage because of this guy that's blocking everything, and he could caucus with the Republicans. What I didn't realize is when I was talking about that, I was playing checkers, whereas the Biden administration was apparently playing chess, because they didn't attack Joe Manchin. They didn't go after him and say, "Hey, this is the guy holding up your bill." What they did is they're like, "All right, we're going to send the vice president to West Virginia," and they did the same thing to Arizona as well, because Kirsten Sinema is kind of doing a similar thing, though not as loud as Joe Manchin. They sent Kamala Harris to West Virginia, and she went on the local stations taking calls from voters and all that stuff, and explaining what the plan is and how you get your 1,400 and yada yada yada. And people were like, "Yeah, what's wrong with getting 1,400? We love this idea." Even the Republican governor of West Virginia, Jim Justice, went on TV and said, "Yeah, like I get the whole fiscal conservative thing or whatever, but people need money." There's a guy that I heard that froze in his house because he probably didn't have money to pay the electricity bill, right? Yeah. So like he was talking about that. So you now have the Republican governor of West Virginia basically coming to the left of Joe Manchin on this, right? So that sort of forced his hand in that direction. So yesterday, sorry, just real quick. So yesterday they passed the reconciliation 50 to 49. So including Joe Manchin, all 50 Democrats voted to advance the debate to the full Senate. Right, so now they'll debate the stimulus, and then they'll vote on the 1.4 trillion. All 49 Republicans that voted all voted no on advancing that. So remember that next time you're voting, that Republicans didn't want to give you your money in the midst of a pandemic. Okay, you were going to say something?
Two things. One, I'm glad that somebody finally said it, because I think what's going on with that governor, although we watched it on TYT, which are like, they're all right. They're the MSNBC. I'm not a fan of Cirque. I like her, but not Cirque. But anyways, yeah, that guy. Yeah. One thing that they said was that he was trying to go for Joe Manchin's position after he's done with being a governor. That's kind of what they were saying. I don't think so. I don't actually think it's that. I think what it is, there are some people who realize that empathy is not a partisan issue.
Exactly.
It is not a partisan issue.
Doesn't that always have to be a cynical thing,
Exactly. You don't have to be a Republican or Democrat to realize people are suffering. And you know what? He said it. He basically said, F the budget. F the money. Forget about that. He's like, people are freaking dying. They're starving. Like he said, a guy just froze to death in his house.
Yeah.
This is like, no, don't worry about that crap. Let's get money out. And then it also kind of brings back to the whole, because right now they're arguing about the minimum wage, even though I think arguing for a $15 minimum wage is kind of like 10 years behind. It really should be. If you look at the way it is, by the time 2025 comes around, $15 is going to be the same minimum amount of now. Go ahead. You were going to say something?
Yeah, sorry. Just real quick on the minimum wage thing. I think minimum wage is part of an increase in the minimum wage was part of the Biden proposal, and the Republicans' rebuttal removed that. They don't want to increase the minimum wage. Why? I do not know. But anyway,
because they argue that causes inflation,
the price of things to go up,
which has been shown that any inflation that happens due to minimum wage is small. Because you know what? Unlike rich bastards in Congress and the rich bastards in freaking Hamptons or whatever the hell I don't know where the hell they reside. People like us, we don't hold on to our money. We spend it.
Yeah.
Right? We spend our money. And then there's people who argue, oh, well, what about immigrants when they send it back? I was like, no, the majority of immigrants who come here illegally, let's just go with undocumented, they end up staying. Their original plan is half the time is to send the money back, take it over there, and go live over there. But then what happened? They have kids.
Cost of living makes it pretty much impossible to do that.
Yeah, because your kids are here. You assimilate. Now it becomes where my life is no longer going to be going back over there. Yeah, maybe I'll get a retirement home over there, but my life's going to be here. So the thing is with the minimum wage, you put that money out there, you give people that money, they're going to spend it. Because guess what? now I don't have to. I can go to the movies now if I'm originally making $7.25 an hour and I have a family and my wife is making the same amount. Now we can go to the movies because now I got a little bit of extra cushion that I can go, or we can go to a nice restaurant opposed to people going and super couponing at the grocery store. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like the whole idea of this whole like deficit, like crap. Just shut up about it.
Yeah.
Because you know what? You're gonna spend our money regardless.
Yeah, and the biggest thing, dude, we've talked about this at least 4 different times that we've done the politics section. It's that they have no problem with the deficit, with trillions in deficit when it comes to funding wars, right? When it comes to military spending, they're like, hey, we know it's gonna, knock this deficit a bit, but screw it, man. We need our weapons. But when it comes to like helping Americans that one have either lost their jobs or 2 need a reason to not, brave COVID and go out and all that stuff, they're like, nah, man. Like, oh, I'm not struggling. I'm up here in my ivory towers. I see you struggling, but I really don't give a damn. The Jim Justice. The thing is, he actually lives in West Virginia because he's governor, right? He actually has to be there. Joe Manchin is off in DC doing whatever. I bet you he barely goes back and sees his constituents. So he's not hearing these stories. He's just trying to placate to his Republican colleagues for I don't know what reason. I really don't understand. But the whole thing is just, it's frustrating to see that they can't like come to an agreement on this.